Hello, everyone. Welcome to this meeting. And this is the first of many educational trainings on teaching Black people how to build wealth through apartment investing. And for those of you who couldn't make it to the first meetup, I wanted to go over this webinar to give more detail for the people who did come and for the people who couldn't make it to share some information. And please feel free to pass this on to anybody who you think might be interested in. So I just want to start with a legal disclaimer, which is a standard disclaimer that anybody who ever talks about any type of investing goes through. So I'm not an attorney, accountant, economist, or financial advisor. Any information I provide is not a promise of returns, and I'm not responsible for the results of any investment you make. You're responsible for conducting your own research and due diligence before investing, with the understanding that all investing has risks and you could lose your money. Okay. So just a little bit about me and what I'm doing. Why am I even doing this? I'm from East Oakland, born and raised. And from there, growing up in a low-income community, I decided that I wanted to focus on improving neighborhoods and communities through real estate development. So then I went on to work for the government here in the Bay Area. And my first job was giving money to real estate developers to build apartment buildings. So I was on the finance side and construction side. And also when the projects were complete, I was the asset manager who looked over the property manager and made sure that they were doing what they were supposed to do. So I got my start really understanding the finance and how all these projects are funded, and then what goes into developing a project from the ground up. And also some of the projects I worked on were acquisition and rehab projects. They were affordable housing projects, which are a lot more complicated than market rate because the financing is so tricky. So I got a lot of good experience doing that. I funded 40 projects worth over $1 billion. And then I was the asset manager of about 4,000 apartments of both affordable and market rate, which are a little bit different, but essentially it's the same thing. You're making sure that the money's coming in, you're cash flowing, and the building is being taken care of. I've also invested in my own small rental properties in California, Phoenix, and Florida. And currently what I do is I find apartment buildings and I analyze the apartment deals for investors who are looking for buildings, and also for myself because I'm looking to buy my own building. So why am I doing this? Why did I set up this meetup? My whole goal and my purpose now in my life is clear for me in that I want to do my part in helping us as a people move forward. Definitely don't want us to go backwards, which is I see us doing, slipping backwards, but focused on helping us as all the people that came before us did their part since when we first stepped off the boats in 1619 as slaves. We're here now free, able to choose our labor, and so many great benefits because everyone did their part. They fought, they struggled, they improved. And so here we are today. And for us and the next generations to keep going forward, we have to keep doing our part. And this is my part, to teach people how to invest in apartments and wealth building so we can have control over our economic future. And the reason why I said that we still need a lot of help and are slipping backwards is because of these statistics. Just a few. We are only 12% of the US population, but we have a 21% poverty level. We have 65% of the median income, which is the lowest of all races. We have 14.5% of median net worth, which is the lowest of all races, including Hispanics. And we're 37.5% of the prison population. So this is our story. It's been our story for a long time, and we need to get another one in order for us to do better. And I'm here to address our issues that have led us to this point. We understand that we came from slavery, and then after that, all this discrimination and oppression, and a lot of that affected our mindset and how we look at money, how we look at wealth building, how we look at assets. And we've been locked out a lot of those things intentionally, but now is a great time to use the opportunities that we have to make another change and to take control of our economic future. So I want to talk about the 40 acres and a mule for a second, which for those of you who aren't familiar with that term, it was what was promised the slaves after the Civil War. It was the redistribution of wealth that we were going to get the property from the Southerners, and it was going to be divided up among the free slaves, and everybody would get 40 acres and a mule to start off. And they didn't get it, and that was devastating to them because what they were promised was an income-producing asset, two actually, real estate and a mule, which in today's time you could maybe say equivalent to a tractor. And when you have your own assets, particularly real estate, there's so much you can do to control your own economics. You can work the land yourself, you can rent it out, you can build an apartment building, you could build an office building. You can do so many things, but what we were not offered, what President Lincoln did not offer the slaves were jobs, which I know most of us are just focused on getting a job. He didn't say, once you get free, you can come and work at the White House and I'll pay you. Or you can get money for the cotton, picking cotton, as opposed to doing it for free. Did not offer a job. He offered those income producing assets. And when that was not given, they were devastated because now their whole economic life was in the hands of someone else, and a group of people who wanted to oppress them and keep them down. 40 acres is a lot of property. Today, you could put about 800 apartment units, and if you were to rent those units at $2,000 each, you'd have $9 million per year after expenses. That's a lot of money. So we need to build assets such as real estate to stay economically competitive because the world is getting more global. First of all, we have lots more immigration, which is in the Bay Area for people who live here. We are competing with a lot of immigrants who are coming in, they're working the tech jobs, they're making the money, and then they're buying a lot of these homes, which are driving up the prices of housing. We all feel it here, but also globalization is happening where there's jobs going overseas. So we're not just competing with the people in your neighborhood, we're competing with the world. Also, there are things that are really causing a lot of people to struggle. Student loan debt. I was told if you went to school, college, you came out, you got a job, everything was good, but they didn't take into account the fact that you had student loan debt. And now we have a lot of taxes. This new tax bill that Trump passed really hurts the middle class. It helps businesses. So if you have real estate, it helped you. I have some real estate, so it helped me. But if you have a job, you're in the middle, you are going to be hurt. Inflation is another thing that really eats into your money. And then we need to build assets to keep from just going backwards, just to maintain what we have right now. So why apartments? Apartments, I understand apartments, so that's why I'm sharing information about apartments. But there's other types of real estate and investments, stocks, bonds, office, retail. There are other things. But apartments I like because there's always a need for them. People always need a place to stay. And now even more and into the future, people are choosing to rent apartments over buying a house. Part of it is they're choosing it intentionally because millennials, they don't want the responsibility, or they're getting married later. Older people, they're looking to downsize and they don't want all the yard work and all that maintenance and headaches. Not everybody's staying married or has children in the traditional two-person households. There are a lot of single-head households who need an apartment. And then immigration. As our population is growing, it's growing in a big way because people are moving here from other countries. And when people move here for jobs, of course, they need a place to stay. So there's one study that estimates we're going to need 4.6 million apartments by 2030. So the other reason is cash flow. You can get cash flow if you buy it right, where you, after all your expenses, you have money coming in that supplements your income. And there are some people I know, they do not work anymore. They do not have a regular job. All of their money comes from the income they get from their properties. It's also an inflation hedge. What I mean by that is as the price of everything goes up, in order for you to be able to keep spending money and buying what you need, your income has to go with it. And if you own property, that's your income. And one of the things that always goes up, along with food and gas and everything else, is the cost of housing. So if you own rentals, then your rental property income is gonna go up, and you can stay ahead or keep up with inflation. You have appreciation as the property values increase. And when property values increase, people can do a lot of interesting things with them. They can take equity out and buy something else. They can cash out. They can sell it, of course, and make a profit and maybe buy something else. And then there's this thing called forced depreciation, where you have control to make your property be worth more. Different from a stock. When you buy a stock, you're just trusting that company to manage the company well, and then your stock will go up. But if you own your own building, there's things you could do. You can charge pet fees, you can renovate, you can charge renter's insurance, you can charge some of the tenants their utilities for reimbursement. Those are all in your control, and you can do that, add all those things to increase the income, and then that will make the property appreciate, because apartment buildings, they're valued based on the income that comes in. Tax benefits, you get a lot more tax benefits from real estate, and particularly apartments, as opposed to single family homes, just because of the way the IRS laws are written. And then it's more recession proof. If the whole economy tanks, people are still going to need a place to stay. And if they lose their homes, they're going to need an apartment to rent. So it's a good thing for times of recession. Okay, so some people are very familiar with buying 1 to 4 units. Apartments are different in a few ways. One, apartments are considered 5+ units. They're considered commercial. Commercial, they're in the same class as office, retail, industrial, those type of things. Those are all considered commercial. Any residential buildings that has at least 5 units are considered commercial. And this is important because, one, it's valued separately, differently. And two, the main thing is the financing. So most people, they're going to use loans, which I encourage you. I never encourage you to spend all your cash on one building, because that limits how many buildings you can buy. When you get a loan, the lender is going to underwrite and analyze your property differently from 1 to 4 units. It's going to look at the income and not your income. So if I buy a duplex, the bank is still going to look at my income to qualify, to make sure that I have enough income for my job or other sources of income to pay that mortgage. If I buy an apartment building, they're only going to look at the income of the building. So it doesn't matter if I have $1 million coming in a year. If that building is not producing enough income to cover that mortgage, you cannot get a loan. Economies of scale. It's a lot easier to manage one big building in one place with one roof and one property manager and one location than to go all over the place to all these different smaller properties. Also, you get the benefit of having cheaper cost per unit. So just like you go to Costco or Sam's, wherever you are, you buy in bulk. You may buy a bag of a big thing of tissue, toilet tissue. It may cost you more than if you were to go to a local store, but you're getting the tissue per unit is cheaper. So here in California, if you were to buy a house or say a duplex, it may cost you $800,000. So that's $400,000 a unit. And if you bought, say, a 100-unit apartment building, you could probably get it for maybe $280,000, $350,000 a unit. So it's a lot cheaper. And the rent is not that much more if you're going to pay more. So if you get a duplex and you may spend $800,000, you may get $4,000 in rent. And if you get a 100-unit apartment, say 2 of those units together, you may get $3,600 in rent. So you're spending a lot more money per unit, but you're not getting that much rent. So just because you pay twice as much for a unit doesn't mean you're going to get twice as much the rent. Less vacancy risk. If I have a 2-unit, a duplex, and one person moves out, that's 50% of my income. If I have a 100-unit building and one person moves out, that's 1% of my income. That's not going to hurt me. Depreciation, again, that's a lot more tax benefits. And it's also a full-time business. So that's good and bad in that you have to have your own team, a full team. You cannot run the whole apartment by yourself. You have to have your accountants, your legal team, your property manager, your realtor. You got to have all of it, just as if you had a business. And each property, if it's big, it's like a little business. The benefit is that it's more passive. That means you can turn it over to someone, your team, and have them run it. In the big apartment buildings that I used to asset manage, there was a property manager that lived on site, a maintenance person that lived on site, an assistant property manager, a part-time leasing agent. They ran the building. I did not get calls from tenants in the middle of the night. I can go on vacation and let them run it. But you still have to be there, but it's not like they're depending on you for every little thing. Also, bigger profits. When you're dealing in bigger numbers, you have bigger profits even for the same percent. So if, say, you bought $1 million fourplex and you got 10% return, then that's $100,000. If you bought a $10 million apartment building and you got a 10% return, it's $1 million. So same percent, bigger profits. And then it's valued based on the income. So you can have two apartment buildings that are sitting right next to each other with the same number of units in the same exact condition with two different values. Because say one owner, they got lazy and they just decided they didn't want to raise rents. So they just kept the rents low for years. And the owner next door, they decided I'm going to keep up with the market. So they kept raising rents. And they also added things like pet fees, and they put a laundry thing in there. They got more money from that. So they have more income. So their property is going to be worth more, even though it's basically looks and exactly the same as in the same area. Okay, so how do you do it? You've never done it before. How do you do it? There's lots of different ways. You can be active, which is buy an existing building. You can run it yourself, hire your team, and then you can just run it, something that's already existed. You can start from the ground up, which is my experience. A lot of my experience is new construction. You have a lot more control over that and the quality, and you know exactly what's going on for new construction, but it is different and it is a lot more work. You can repurpose another building that's not an apartment and turn it into it. So I've worked on projects where they turn churches, warehouses, motels, hotels into apartment buildings. You can fix and flip just like you have a house. You can buy something and do a little work to it and then sell it within 6 months. You can also find properties for other people, which is part of what I do, and then get a finder's fee. You could do private lending, which is where you're the bank. And some people, they may need money from you to borrow money from you from their apartment because, say, a bank doesn't want to touch it because it's too small or the vacancy rate is too high. There's some issues with it. So people also lend money to people who buy apartments, and they get a much higher interest rate. So they, instead of getting 4%, which is what the bank may get, you might get 8 or 9% for lending to this person. And again, you have a lien on the property's collateral just like any other loan. You can be an equity limited partner. So it's just like when you buy a stock, you buy a share in that company and you have an ownership in that company. And when the company does well, you do well. When the company doesn't do well, you also don't do well, but you have more opportunities to go as high as the company could possibly go. And you are hands off. So some people at this point in their life, they may be interested in investing in a property, but they do not want to do any work, make any decisions. They just want to give money and get a check back in the mail. So this is for you if you're interested in equity limited partnership. Okay, so a REIT is a real estate investment trust. Those are similar to what I just mentioned, except you are buying a share in a lot of properties, not just one building. And those are things that you can buy on the stock market. And then Delaware statutory trusts are similar, where you also buy a share, but you are buying a share in a particular property, not a pool of properties. And you can do a 1031 exchange into and out of these. People who are not familiar with 1031 exchanges, they are a way for you to sell a property and then roll that profit into another building so you do not have to pay taxes right away. So Delaware statutory trust, you can do that. Some of these other things, like a REIT, you cannot. So what if I can't afford a building? It's okay, because most people can. Most people cannot. Even the big companies are making all this money. They're not using their money. Actually, they're using your money, even though you might not know it. Your pension company, your life insurance company, the bank that has your deposits, they all take that money and buy real estate. They buy apartments. And then they make a return, a big return, they give you a little bit. Some people also sell smaller properties and buy a bigger building. They may have like maybe 5 duplexes and a 4-plex. They may sell all those things and buy one big 100-unit apartment building. And then also many people, even on a smaller scale, even if they're not a big bank or a pension, everybody partners. 90% of the people partner, especially if you're starting off. They partner, families partner and buy apartment buildings, friends come together and buy a building. So this is the common way that people do it. And I'm focusing on the partnering is because other races, in particular people coming into this country, they're taking advantage of all the opportunities. We, in this country, we let anybody buy real estate, which is not the same in other countries. Sometimes you have to be a citizen or live there. Not here. So other races are coming in, they're pooling money, they're buying apartment buildings, and they're getting very wealthy. And we're right here and not doing that. So the thing that we do, like the not trust thing, got to get over that. And I know where it comes from. We all know it comes from slavery. And we have a divide and conquer mentality because that was the way to keep us oppressed. And we've been burned by somebody black that we wanted to help and screwed us over. But other people screw us over all the time. And the way for us to move forward is to work together. Find people that you can trust, vet them, and understand that we are all in this thing together. Process of buying apartments. Okay, number 1, you have to understand your metro area. This is from the very top down to the minute thing. This is what I'm talking about. So you have to understand your metro area and understand where's the demand. Where can I buy an apartment that somebody is going to stay there and pay me the rent that I want? Well, it all depends on what's going on in your area. Apartment demand is driven by population because people move, they need a place to stay, and population demand comes from jobs. So in the Bay Area, we have a lot of jobs, so we have a lot of people moving here. And then other places, people go for other reasons, not just jobs, they go for retirement. So Florida, a lot of people are moving to Florida, people move to Arizona, they sell their houses, they go there to retire. And even though they're not looking for jobs, when retired people move other places, they create jobs because somebody's got to run the nursing home, the cruise ship that they love to go on, whatever else that people that are retired do, golf course, whatever. So they create jobs, and all those people that work, they have to have a place to stay. What else? You look for things that other people like natural resources. In Bay Area, we have mountains, lakes, people are going to move here. Utah is another place that people move for the same reason. Florida, people move for different reasons for climate. And so that's what drives the things that the metro area. And then you have to understand your neighborhood. Everybody knows that all the neighborhoods are not the same. There's rich neighborhoods, there's poor neighborhoods, there's middle-class neighborhoods. There's neighborhoods that have good schools, terrible schools, near the freeway, way far out, near stores and things so that are convenient, near public transportation. It's hard to get to. All those things make a difference in whether or not people want to live there. Talk to lenders. If you're going to buy something, you want to know what the lenders are going to fund and what they're not going to fund. So you can say, okay, that property over there, I'm going to need a lot more money because this lender's only going to give me X, or this lender's not, I can't get a lender to touch this. Maybe I have to go and borrow money from a friend. So the lenders, and there's kind of some standard requirements that the lenders have. Talk to them in advance. They will tell you, we will fund in this area. Our interest rate is about this. You have to have so many requirements. We have to have X, Y, and Z for us to lend on the property, and they'll tell you what they need. So when you go in, you can get an idea of, is this something that can be funded? And then you want to start searching for properties. You talk to brokers, you look on different websites, you talk to your friends who may be in the industry, you talk to people who own property and say, hey, you think about selling your property, let me know. And then you start running numbers. I have a spreadsheet that I developed. It's an underwriting spreadsheet that puts in all this data. It puts in the revenue, it puts in expenses, It puts in reserves for, say something happened, I need just like a fund to make sure that I have money to cover expenses. It puts in a capital reserve to replace things like the roof. It puts in all the expenses that I need to close. There's lots of different things when you buy property. Inspections and all these things that you have to pay for, puts in all the lender's fees, and then it spits out numbers. It tells me this is going to generate X amount of return over 5 years, 7 years, 10 years, whatever. You have to decide how long you're going to keep it. And I can say, well, that makes sense, or no, it's not even worth it. Or it makes sense to me, but maybe I can't get anybody else to fund it because they're looking for higher returns and we have different goals. So that's what you do, running the numbers. And then you find equity partners. So the lender is only going to lend you so much money. They have to manage their risk. They're not going to lend you 100%. They're going to lend you probably 70, 60, 50%, depending on the market, depending on the income of the property. You got to come up with the rest of the cash some kind of way. You can use your money, or you could use your money of your friends or your family or your business partners or people who have extra money lying around. They want to invest in real estate. They just can't find the deal. They're looking for you to find the deal. You show them the deal. They give you the money. It's not a loan. It's equity. So they own a share of that building or a share of your company that's holding the building. And then you give them cash flow every month. Build your team. So you have to have someone to manage the property. This is the day-to-day stuff, tenant, evictions, maintenance, things like that. You have to have a legal team. You have to have accountants. You have to have a real estate agent, and then an asset manager. And an asset manager is different from a property manager in that they are looking at higher level things. They're not dealing with tenants. They're dealing with, should we sell the property now or should we wait? Should we increase the rents now? And if so, by how much? Should we add a pool? Is it worth it? Should we put in a laundry? Is it worth it? So they're more of a higher level, bigger decision group that manages the big budget and looks long-term and executes the long-term plan for the property. And then once you find a property that makes sense, you make an offer, you get into contract, and then you do all your due diligence, your reports, your inspections, your appraisal, all that, and then you close. So you're saying, okay, that sounds overwhelming. Where do I start? Well, first, understand your goal. Why are you even doing this? And to make money is not a good answer because everybody wants to make money, but everybody doesn't need money now. Everybody doesn't need as much money. Everybody doesn't need money for the purposes that you need money. So everybody's goal is different. If you want to increase your income right now through cash flow, then you need something to supplement your job. That's what you're saying. Some people don't need that. Some people will do it for the tax breaks, meaning they will not have any cash flow. And matter of fact, they might be negative. They might have to put money into the project every month, which is fine because they may try to shelter some other income over here for a while. You might want a place to stay or have a place for your family to live. So if you have a really big family and say you bought a 20-unit building, you may give each of your family one of those units and it's cheaper than all of you trying to buy your own separate houses. You might want to leave an inheritance. So this is something that is a long-term hold for you. You're never going to sell it. It's an asset building thing for the next generation. And then you may need something for retirement. So that means you're buying property now, you have a job, you're not looking for that property to give you money right now, but once you retire, you're looking to refi, take some money out, buy something else, you're looking to sell it, whatever. Those are some of the different goals. So think about why you want to even get into it. The other thing is you have to get educated. I would never encourage somebody to just go out and buy an apartment. As a matter of fact, I'm saying do not buy an apartment. Most people that start off, they educate, they understand it. So when they go into something, they're very comfortable with it. It's not foreign. They're not scared. And they have a better idea of the whole process in both short-term and long-term. So when they go into it, they know exactly what they're getting into. And I'm going to give you guys some educational tools that you can start getting educated so you can understand. And even me, even though I've been in the industry for a while, I still listen to education. I still listen to other people do their deal pitches. I still listen to people talking about the economy. Some of the stuff I know and I've heard before, but it's still a good refresher, and I'm still connected to the industry. So the more repetitive information I hear about the same thing, the more comfortable I am with it and the more I learn. You got to get determined. Nothing's easy. Investing is not easy, especially when you're giving or investing your hard-earned money into something. It's a determination of not giving up to find the right property, to find something that makes you comfortable. There are struggles in apartment investing, just like anything else, any other business, and you just have to be determined that you're not going to give up. Other thing is save. Most people put some of their own money into it. It's very rare that some people don't have any money into it. So you have to save and start saying that this is important to me by my actions, and one of those actions is saving some money. Build relationships. There's other people who think like you, which is one of the reasons why I started this whole meetup, is to bring together like-minded people who want to do great things. And there's many of us who have so many talents, gifts, money, resources, to pull all those things together to do something greater than if we were trying to do something on our own. And then again, do not just go out there and buy something. Then you'll probably be sorry and you'll have a lot more headaches until you really understand the business. So mindset is the whole thing. We can do whatever we want if we have the right mindset. And priorities are one of the first things about how you're thinking, short-term and long-term. So short-term, you may need to save $25,000. And then you may have a long-term goal of to own 100 units within 5 years. Trust issues. We have huge trust issues, which are a huge barrier. There is no way that I'm going to be able to buy and run a $20 million apartment building by myself. I have to trust some people. I have to trust a lot of people, actually, because there's a lot of people that need to be involved to make that happen. Am I going to work with just anybody who's not responsible and not reliable and doesn't know what they're doing? No. Am I going to say I'm never going to work with a black person again because that person over there screwed me? No. I am intentionally looking for qualified black people who are on the same page as me for us to work together. And I know we're out there. I know that we're out there because I see people and I talk to people all the time. It's just that we're all isolated and seem to be having these conversations in silos, which is another reason why I'm doing this group, so we can all be in the same room and do something together. And then get the family involved. All of these issues that we're struggling with, all of it's generational. Some people don't know because your parents didn't know. They didn't know because their parents didn't know, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, going all the way back. The same thing, the reverse is true, where people who are in business, in apartment investing, it's a natural thing to them. They have no fear because their parents taught them when they were young how to do it. So bring your teenagers. I totally encourage you to bring your teenagers to these meetups that they can listen, focus. The earlier they have it in their mindset, the better they will be and the less fear that they will have. Okay, so some people I talked to about this and they're like, well, I can't save. Really? I think that people can do whatever they want to do. And here are some expenses that you could think about cutting back. These discretionary things that we say that we need and really don't need them. And not that you can't ever spend money on these things, but I'm just saying focus on the bigger goal. Some people, like different races, Asians, Indians, they'll come here with nothing. We all know this. They live together. They do not spend a lot of money. They save money, and then they use that pool of money to help each other buy businesses. And then once they get wealthy, then they start the spending, but not in the beginning when they're trying to get themselves towards their goal. So all these expenses you see, extra food, bottled water, nails, hair, movies, going to Starbucks, coffee, clothes, gym, cable, all these things, vacation. You know what your thing is. My thing is movies and vacations. So I've had to cut back on that for right now in certain instances for me to reach my goal. All this can add up to $25,000 a year if you're really wanting to focus on it. All right, weed, I have in there alcohol, sports, and sports especially. If you have a team that's doing good, you can spend $1,000 on one night if you take your family, between the parking and the tickets, those boxing matches that you get to pay $62 or $65 to watch. All those are extra things that you could cut back on for temporarily until you reach your goal. Okay, so here's some of the education resources that I listen to. They're very, very helpful. Some are online. Joe Fairless, he has webinars. O Capital Podcast, they're a lender out of Texas. They do a lot of education. And then some of these are local meetups in the Bay Area. Virtual Investors Group, they're in San Francisco. Bay Area Multifamily Real Estate Meetup, they're in San Francisco. And they have some things in Oakland, San Leandro. Oakland Investments Real Estate Group Meetup, that's Steve Peterson. He's a broker, a real estate broker. And he has a meetup. Bay Area Commercial Multifamily, they're in San Jose. Oakland Multifamily Real Estate Investing Meetup. Real Wealth Network, Kathy Fechty, I think that's how you pronounce her name. She actually focuses more on single family, but I encourage you to listen to her information on her website because she also talks a lot about the economy. And that's what I meant by researching your metro. She talks about why they buy in certain areas, and why they buy in certain areas is for single family. It's also going to affect multifamily because they're going to buy in areas where people are moving, the population is growing, there are jobs, there are other benefits. And so when people are moving certain places and the population is growing, and there's going to be a need for apartment investing. And then Matt Faircloth, he has a YouTube channel, and then Bigger Pockets. All right, future topics. We're going to talk about analyzing your market, analyzing your neighborhood, looking at financials and determining if the property is even worth it financially, how to find properties, how to pool money legally. When you start getting into apartment investing, some of these things are considered securities and you have to follow securities laws. Getting a loan, how to manage your building, how to rehab your building, and doing 1031 exchanges, which again are when you sell a property, sell an investment property, and then you take your profits and buy something else to avoid paying capital gains taxes. All right. So thank you all, and I hope that you learned something. Please share this with anybody that you know. Please give me your email if you want to be on the list to get more information. And then as properties become available, maybe some people in the group, maybe I have a property that I want to share and maybe people might want to invest in, I'll share that with you. And hopefully my goal is that we can do great things together. So thank you. Take care.